What's up, everybody? Real quick before I get started, I just thought I'd let you guys know that over on my alt channel, Nintendine Plus, I finally got my Donkey Kong 64 video completed and uploaded. I say finally because I promised that this video would be out over the summer, and obviously I did not deliver, but Donkey Kong 64 is a very hard game to make a video on. Especially when you consider that my videos go into excruciating detail to the point where this Donkey Kong one is like 3 hours long. But don't let that length scare you away. I have it broken up into chapters that are like about 20 minutes long, so you can watch it in multiple sittings. But yeah, that video's over there along with all the other stuff that I've worked on. And I'm hoping to have another retrospective video out before the new year, but I'm not going to make any promises this time. The next video on there is going to be either Super Mario 3D Land or Banjo-Tooie. And then whichever one of those I do first, I'll probably do the second one after it. We'll see. Back to the juicy stuff. Alright, so I think I owe everybody an apology. From April until now, I kept insisting that we would very likely get a discount on the Nintendo Switch 2 leading up to Black Friday. I thought it was a shoo-in. I thought it was a guarantee. Starting with June, following the sales patterns of the Switch 2, looking at all the different Circana data, look at all the different historical sales numbers we've seen from previous consoles, reflecting on spending habits of the United States since 2020 until now, analyzing in-store stock, tracking sales number on retailer websites. With all of that extremely long and time-consuming effort that I put in, I was like, it's guaranteed. The Switch 2 is going to be getting a discount somewhere by Black Friday in the United States. There's no chance it doesn't. And I'm finally here to tell you guys that I was wrong. The Switch 2 did not go on sale in Black Friday of 2025 like I had predicted it would. Instead, I was off by 3 days and it didn't drop in price until Monday. Cyber Monday, to be exact. I was off by 3 days. All right, hold on. All right, sorry, I'm not a gloater. This is not what the point of this channel is. But like, I get a few seconds here, at least a few seconds. I won't drag it on for too long. Don't want to stroke that Nintendigo, am I right? There has not been a discount from a retailer for a Nintendo console since the Wii U. And furthermore, the only time a retailer has given a discount this early on in a Nintendo console's life, and I checked, since at least the GameCube, was when Target slashed the price of the base model white Wii U just about 6 or 7 months after that console launched. Since then, we have seen a Nintendo Switch barely ever get any form of Nintendo discount. Like maybe around 2022 and up until now, there's been a few times where like the Switch Lite might drop 10 or 20 bucks or the OLED might drop something. But from retailers to give a discount for a Nintendo console has been unheard of. It has not existed. There are people listening to this video right now that were not born the last time this happened, especially this early in the console's life. Because I think the Switch 2 discount technically happened weeks quicker than the one for the Wii U did from Target back in 2013. Since the Nintendo Switch came out every single year, the Switch has had one of the most successful holiday seasons out of anything in history. The pattern always goes, Sony wins November, Nintendo wins December. But Nintendo is not failing in November. It's selling an absurd amount of copies, and almost every single year those copies were Mario Kart bundles at $300. That was the Switch 1 deal that happened every single year from when that console came out until now. But that was high in demand. Retailers did not need to do anything. They just had to be like, hey, we have the Switch, and it was guaranteed everybody was gonna show up for Black Friday and for December, and they were gonna buy Switches every single year. It was guaranteed. There is always demand for Nintendo Switch. It might have sold more at Amazon, it might have sold more at Walmart, it might have sold more at Target. Doesn't matter where it's sold more, it's sold well everywhere. And through that entire console generation, none of those retailers needed to make a statement as big as Walmart did 2 days ago. And mind you, so far as of the time of this recording, that's not just a Cyber Monday deal. If you click on Walmart's website, they technically don't even have it listed as a Cyber Monday deal. It's just a discount for the Switch 2. And people keep reporting and being like, hey, it's just a Walmart thing, it's just a Walmart thing, everybody else canceled it. That's not true. The other retailers are pulling back on it overnight, but then they immediately put it back onto the shelves by like 12 or 1 o'clock. Amazon, every single day from Monday until now, has had Switch 2s available at $450 discount. That's 450 bucks for the Mario Kart World Bundle, which is also known as the bundle that a vast majority of people bought because very few people actually bought the Pokemon bundle since those were not available as readily as the Mario Kart World bundles, and the base model, which is also being ignored because most people are like, spend an extra 50 bucks and get a game out of it. But now that main bundle, the main Switch 2, which is the Mario Kart World console, has gone 3 days in a row now where it's been discounted at Walmart, Sam's Club, Target, And through Tuesday, it was discounted at Best Buy as well. Right now, it's discounted at Best Buy if you're a Plus member, which was not the case a week ago. This is absolutely unheard of. Go on Google and search within the time frame everything prior to November, and search if it's worth waiting until Black Friday to get the Nintendo Switch 2 or worth waiting until 2026 to get the Nintendo Switch 2. You will be drowning in links and comments and articles, and in some cases insults of people assuring you that there is a 0 chance in the ever-living hell that you will be able to buy the Nintendo Switch 2 for anything cheaper than what it is currently moving for. People will laugh at you. They will call you insane. People called me insane. They've been calling me insane because I thought that they would get a discount before 2026. And lo and behold, the Nintendo Switch 2 is available right now for each and every one of you that live in the United States to jump on any of those major retailers' websites and buy a discounted Switch 2. Now, there's a possibility this deal might go away, but the damage is done. The veil has been lifted. Glass is shattered. The facade is crumbling. There is a chink in the Nintendo Switch 2's armor now because now we know that the largest retailers in the United States are willing to drop the price on it. And even if this was only a Walmart thing, it's the first time in at least a decade or two, probably even longer than that a retailer this early into a console's life, and you can probably extend that to like the first 2 years of a console's life, is willing to take a loss on what they could sell a Nintendo console for because they feel the need to sway people to come in and buy that console. But there are not enough Switch 2s sold for these types of games just yet. This is way too early for a Nintendo console to be discounted at a retailer. And yes, it is different when Nintendo does it versus when Sony does it or Xbox does it. Nintendo has conditioned the buyers, the gaming community, the entire world to believe that it's impossible to get their stuff at a discount. They've conditioned people to believe that their stuff doesn't go down in price. That's why there's such a big talking point around it, especially in America. And now all of a sudden, the largest retailers across America were like, hey, maybe we should be competitive. Now all of a sudden, people want to pretend this is because Walmart's trying to be a loss leader? Nintendo consoles are not used as a loss leader. That's just not a thing anymore. And the only reason that discussion is being brought forward is because what else are Nintendo fans going to tell you? They can't tell you they were wrong. Not yet. Not until we get some data from Circana in the next few weeks. Not until we find out that the Switch 2 sold fewer units in November than any other year of the original Switch's life. They should put an asterisk on the end of that because we don't know for sure if that's going to be the case, obviously. But I'm feeling lucky. And of course I am, because I told people that we would get a price cut on this console before the new year. And we did. And if you do not know why this is possible, if maybe you're out there and you're just like, hang on a second, like fastest selling console, like hotcakes, enough units for everybody. This isn't making sense to me. Nintendo never does discounts. If these are the thoughts in your mind right now while watching this video, well, first of all, welcome to the channel because you clearly have not watched any of these other videos that I've made over the past 8 months. But if you don't get it, then let me summarize it for you. Nintendo had more units available at launch through the end of June than any other console has in history, due to market conditions related to tariffs, prices going up, all the crazy stuff that's going around. In early July and August, they probably shipped out more Switch 2s than anybody could have expected they would. And that's why the numbers are so high right now. And while yes, those sales are all well and good for Nintendo, the retailers, I'm assuming, expected that when they were selling out every single console up until the end of July at least, and after their experience with Xbox and Sony for the first 2 or 3 years of their life in 2020 and 2021 and 2022, they probably figured, well, hey, this thing sold 1.6 million units in June. There's a Pokemon game coming out in a few months. We're pretty much guaranteed to sell through all of this by the end of November. When the Switch 2 managed to sell 1.6 million units in June, I don't think anybody expected that we would hit October, and per the Circana data, the Switch 2 has yet to cross the 3 million threshold. It hasn't even doubled what it did in its first month. And while the Switch 2 numbers in a vacuum are still impressive for a console that just launched, it's clear that the retailers expected more. And they were probably holding off being like, okay, eventually November is gonna come and that's what's gonna happen. And then it didn't happen on Black Friday. And then now they're freaking out because they're like, we don't know if this is gonna happen by Christmas. Because why else would Walmart offer a discount for the Nintendo Switch 2? A discount for a Nintendo console is not the same as a discount for a PlayStation console. Only one of those companies is notorious for not having sales. When the PS5 goes on a discount, it does not mean that the PS5 is not selling well. When the Switch and the Switch games get a discount, that historically has only happened if there was an issue moving those titles, and even then it was a 50-50 on whether or not those things would go on sale. If it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a console that's struggling to move off of shelves. That's all I'm saying. And look, it's entirely possible that come December 17th or whatever it is when the Circana data drops, we're all sitting here and we find out, you know what, actually, Nintendo was completely wrong. November was phenomenal for the Switch 2. The Cyber Monday deal was just an exception to the rule, and that's entirely possible. But based off of my sales tracking and my tracking of the retailer's sales numbers for the past 3 months have been fairly accurate over the past 3 months, including back in October when most people expected that the Pokemon would move like 400,000 units. And my estimate that I made on this very channel was like 340,000, and it ended up being 328,000. I've been pretty close almost every single month since August. And right now, I think this thing didn't hit 500,000 units. To put into perspective, the Nintendo Switch on its first holiday season sold 775,000 units. 500,000 units for a first November for the Switch 2 would be considered a failure and under everybody's estimates. And I'll take it a step further because they might move that goalpost on us. But if it's not at 700,000 plus, it's a failure. That would be a slow November compared to some Xbox years, let alone Nintendo Switch. But again, I could be entirely wrong on this. I just don't think I am. I have no reason to believe that I was wrong. In June and July, I told you the console would be readily available fairly soon because it's not selling out immediately as it hits the shelves. And when they do sell out, it goes to the scalper market, and then the scalpers were not making money on the Switches. So I predicted that the console would be readily available on shelves much quicker than any other console in history. And every other Nintendo fan out there, everybody out there, not even just Nintendo fans, because nobody else believed it, right? Was like, no, there's no chance you're going to be able to grab a Switch 2 before the end of the year. The thing is going to sell out as soon as it hits shelves from now until December. The common belief was always that whatever Nintendo was able to ship, it's going to sell out immediately. That's why I was so adamant about pushing that the demand was satiated by August. That was the launch demand. And it was fewer units than most other consoles in recent history. All of the so-called experts out there were completely wrong about this. The console was indeed readily available. And they turned it around and said, this has nothing to do with the fact that the console is not selling. This is because Nintendo shipped out so many units. And I'm just like, bro, they have not sold enough units for you to be speaking that arrogantly. And the same way they completely shifted the narrative back when that happened, now they swore. And they've been saying it over and over again. In articles, in YouTube videos, in everything. They convinced you that you would be an idiot to wait to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 because that thing is gonna go up in price. And in between all of that bull was me sitting there being like, nah, this thing's gonna get a discount. It's not moving. Not moving in the way that the retailers expect it, and you can tell. And sure enough, before we even hit the Switch 2's first Christmas, $50 off the console. If this is not happening because the consoles are not selling well, that is an exception. The default view of everybody is that if a Nintendo console is getting a discount, it's because it's not selling well. That should be the default because that is what we've been conditioned to know. And then if it turns out that that's not the case, at that point, we can reevaluate and be like, oh, okay, hang on a second. Maybe the Switch 2 is doing phenomenal and Walmart was just like, let's make this competitive. But that absolutely should not be where the brain is going first. We've discussed supply and demand. I've made ample videos about this. One of the laws of supply and demand is that in order to increase the demand of a product, you decrease the price of that product. This is logical. Offer me a piece of gum for 20 bucks and all of a sudden I'm not interested, but if you tell me it's just a quarter, I'd be like, nah, give me that juicy fruit. This is just the basic concept of purchasing something. If it costs less, more people are going to want to buy it. And if enough people are buying it already, you do not need to decrease the price on the item because you don't need more people to buy it. It's logic. And it's only ever happened in recent years with the Wii U and the 3DS. That's a very bad company for the Switch 2. Now, obviously, this does not mean that the Switch 2 will fail like the Wii U did, or if its launch is a failure the same way the 3DS was. But if there's a statistic that you can compare to those early years of those two consoles, that's a bad sign. Early months even, not even early years. That's just not a good omen. I am so excited to see the numbers for November for Circana, and I'm even more excited to see how December goes. Because let me tell you something, I have been very strong in my boycott against Nintendo. They haven't gotten a penny from me ever since this whole Switch 2 debacle. And what I was saying before, actually what I said from April until this point in time, is that I would consider maybe buying a Switch 2 used after the new year so I can play Bonanza. But that was before I saw the Switch 2 get discounted for Cyber Monday. And that was also before I bought a Legion Go and filled it up with every single Nintendo game I've ever owned. God, this thing is just the best thing I've ever purchased, by the way. I'm playing GameCube games with my family across the country online on a little handheld device, and I don't have to worry about all the dumb Nintendo Switch Online limitations, and I can pick which game I want to play. And this game emulates my Switch games and runs most of them better than they run on the Switch 2. So I'm very much occupied right now. I have no interest in buying a Switch 2 console. But all of that thought of like, maybe eventually I'll buy this thing used or whatever, has gone out the window now, because now I'm seeing discounts by Cyber Monday. And if this happened before the first holiday season, oh, I am just so intrigued to see how this looks in January and February and March and April, because that's when the industry slows down. Here's my next prediction for you, since I'm on a roll with these things. Even if the Nintendo Switch 2 ends up having a record-breaking November and a record-breaking December, if all of that led to a $50 discount for December from Walmart and now some of the other retailers as well, and again, this deal might end in the next couple of days, but again, it's already happened. After this Cyber Monday deal, I now believe that in the first quarter of next year, there's going to be an even bigger discount for the Nintendo Switch 2. And it's going to be crazy because in 2026, everything else is going to be going up in price from the tech industry, and the Nintendo console is going to be available cheaper than it was launched at the year prior. Whether it's a price drop from Nintendo or from the retailers, I don't care. All I know is that if I'm waiting to get a Switch 2 next year, and if others are waiting to get a Nintendo Switch 2 next year when there are more games available, this indicates that it is worth waiting now for Nintendo. That was never the case before. It used to be you buy it right away because there's no point of waiting. They're not gonna go down in price. Nah, friends. If you have money to spend on something right now, go buy a much cheaper PC and emulate the hell out of everything that you love. Don't pirate. Make sure you're only emulating games that are discontinued so that nobody's slapping you on the wrist. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But if the Switch 2 is too pricey for you, it is way more worth it for you to buy either an Android device that emulates, and there's like a butt ton of them available, or of course a handheld gaming PC like I did, because I haven't not put my Legion Go down in weeks now. I'm not kidding. And it's filled with my Nintendo games. This is something that's way more worth your while and will not end up just sitting under your shelf where you won't play it that often like most people that bought the Switch 2 have been saying. And then that way in a year from now, when the Switch 2 ends up getting more discounts, because right now if it's selling like hotcakes and it's getting discounts, when it slows down, it's going to get even more discounts naturally. At that point, you might be able to afford a Switch 2, and it might have a game that's not like Mario Kart World where you're filled up with bots half the time you're playing online, or a game like Kirby Air Riders that seems to have only sold well in Japan, absolutely flopped in Europe, and then just kind of sold maybe good in America, or a game like Hyrule Warriors, which most people forgot even released. You could still buy and play Pokemon Legends ZA and Metroid Prime, either on your Switch 1, or you can easily rip them off of your cartridge and put them onto your emulation device, and it would be entirely legal. The point is that I don't think there's anything lost here. There's no rush. Not for most of you. Not for me especially. And the idea that you need to rush to the store to buy something before it goes up in price is the worst scare tactic I've ever seen online. And I am so happy all of those people were wrong, because I feel so bad for anybody that struggled to buy a Switch 2, ended up getting it in October because people online convinced them that it was going to go up in price. And now that they're out of the return window, they can't even price match it anymore. And it's all because all of these foolish people online told them that there was no chance this thing would ever get discounted, and they gaslighted them into believing that it was eventually going to go up in price. $50 to those people might not mean much, but there are a lot of people in America struggling financially, and those $50 could have made a very big difference for them. But what can I say? Anytime I talk about the console being overpriced, I'm just a brokey, right? I don't care about people that have to spend money. I'm just grifting so I can afford the Switch 2. Anyway, look, at the end of the day, this is excellent news. Whether this means that Nintendo is doing phenomenally well and Walmart just decided to be competitive so the other retailers are matching it, or if it means that the Switch 2 is underperforming. Regardless of how you feel about it, anytime a price goes down for a product, it's a good thing. It was a very good thing when Randy Pitchford said that Borderlands was going to release at $80 and then he had to backtrack on that and put his foot in his mouth. That's a very good sign. It's a very good thing that there's an uproar online from people saying that, hey, Valve, like, we want the Steam machine to be cheaper. It's a very good sign that in this year of increasing hardware prices, Sony decided to discount every single thing going into Black Friday as if it was nobody's business, and people turned up to buy it at the discounted price, even if it was the same price that it was last year. And likewise, it's a good thing that with the Switch 2 going down in price $50 at so many retailers, there will be paycheck to paycheck families out there that can still save an entire tank of gas while buying this Christmas gift for their child. Discounts, price drops, all of that stuff, it's always good, no matter what the reasoning is behind it. It's just better if it turns out that the Switch 2 is not selling well, because that means that this thing will be permanent. In any case, that's all I got for tonight. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you guys on the next one.